Literally a week before your ads started getting put in front of me on Instagram, I invested about $20,000 hiring a sales agency. I didn't have consistent lead generation coming through. Before that, I relied on large live launches, building an email list, organic content, really had zero idea how to run ads. And so after going through a lot of your content, I realized, I just invested all of this money into a sales agency, but I don't have consistency or predictability with leads coming in. So I could spend all the money in the world on sales, but if I'm not bringing qualified people in, then my business isn't going to be making money. And within the 6 months that we worked together in 2024, my business generated almost $400,000. So almost 4 times the amount of money I made in the same amount of time. And so it's been a crazy, beautiful journey. And again, going back to that day, if I were to know what I know now, I would have paid quadruple the price that I actually invested in the program.
All right, what is going on, everybody? I have my client Ava over here who's absolutely been crushing it, and I wanted to bring her on so that we can dive in deep in her business and maybe that you can learn something as well. So Ava, welcome. For everyone that doesn't know who you are, would you mind giving a little 1,000-foot overview of who you are and how long you've been doing this for?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. And, I started my business about 10 years ago and really had a central focus around mindfulness, wellness, was kind of dabbling within the coaching space. And about 5 years ago was when I went all in on my coaching business, building out a business coaching portal for women in wellness, in the health and wellness space primarily, that are building their businesses in the online world utilizing Instagram and social media.
Nice, nice. And I know you started working with us, maybe about a year ago, give or say?
About a little under a year ago. Yep.
And how did you find our company?
Oh, an ad. Yeah. Yeah. I think I've shared this story with you before, but literally a week before your ads started getting put in front of me on Instagram, I invested about $20,000 hiring a sales agency. And so when your ads started popping up, I was like, who is this guy? He really looks like he knows what he's talking about. But I had no intentions to invest because I had just dropped a pretty big chunk of money on building out my sales team and started diving into your content and, decided kind of on the spot, I know that I'm going to work with this guy. I just don't know exactly when. And it was a week later.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. And I also really want to hone in on that a little bit more because we get a lot of people that kind of come from a similar background where they've invested in another coach or they just made an investment, but then they kind of shy away and then they come back 6 or 8 months later. And for you, I just kind of look at you and I'm like, you're a full sender. Like, you know what you want and you make moves on it. So first off, appreciate you for that. But also, what was going through your head? Why did you decide to make that decision? Because clearly you just made a big investment right before.
Yeah. I think the biggest blind spot that I had with investing with the sales agency was that even though I was bringing in these people that could really help me on the sales side of things, I didn't have consistent lead generation coming through. Before that, I relied on large live launches, building an email list, organic content, really had zero idea how to run ads. And so after going through a lot of your content, I realized, I just invested all of this money into a sales agency, but I don't have consistency or predictability with leads coming in. So I could spend all the money in the world on sales, but if I'm not bringing qualified people in, then my business isn't going to be making money. So it was a no-brainer for me to really focus on paid ads, lead generation, and really starting to understand creating predictability in my business.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of people lack the predictability when it comes to growing a business. And for you, how would you say what would be the difference now between when you first started?
Oh God. It's night and day. You and I have had this conversation a lot, but I feel like before we started working together, it was such an emotional roller coaster because I really had nothing tracked. And because of that, I didn't know where any of my results were coming from. And it was kind of just like throwing spaghetti at the walls. And sometimes things would stick and I'd think, okay, that's working, but I wouldn't really understand why it was working or what aspect of it was working. So when I would go to do it again, let's say run a live webinar, I would just follow the same exact process, but it wouldn't necessarily hit the same way. And so it was very much up and down where it felt like there was this feast and famine cycle for me. I would have great months. Sometimes I would make 50K a month, 60K a month. That was kind of like my ceiling. But it wasn't consistent and it wasn't predictable. And so I never really knew how to recreate it besides just like selling constantly and hustling and just putting out a bunch of different offers to see what would land. And so even though the business was successful prior to us working together, it wasn't scalable and there was no sustainability to it. And so coming into your world and really understanding that, one, numbers and data is sexy and it's what can allow for me to be able to scale and create that predictability. But also two, how to understand the numbers in a way that allows me to make more educated decisions on what to focus on and where to channel my energy. And that's been such a game changer for me. I think especially, being a woman and working with a lot of women, it can be a lot of different emotions that drive the show. And it's not to say that our emotions aren't powerful, but often they tell a very different story than the numbers do. And so for me, it's also just helped me to be way more level-headed in my business in a way that I had never experienced before.
Yeah, I think that's really important that you mentioned the numbers and being level-headed because, business is, I'm sure you've seen it, basically a roller coaster a lot of the times. And if we can't master our emotions, we can never get to where we want to be. So, you mentioned KPIs and numbers being sexy, which I thought was amazing to hear. I mean, did you know any of that stuff before like we started working together? Was that like all kind of brand new for you?
So I knew about it, but to me it was like, ew, no, I don't want to talk about any of that stuff. I'm not interested in it. Don't use acronyms with me. And now I'm like the queen of acronyms. I'll talk to my boyfriend and I'll be like, guess what my ROAS was last month? And just nerd out on it because now that I understand it and it's not just like this marketing jargon or term, I can use it to my advantage and I can use it to help inform my team and help me, again, make just stronger decisions for the future of my business.
Yeah. What would you say to someone kind of in the previous position that you were in that they understand like KPIs, they hear about it, but they don't like actually implement it and don't understand the full importance of it?
I think you're doing yourself a disservice because you say that you want to hit these huge money milestones, you want to scale your business, you want to build a team, but you're not willing to look at the very important data that is going to allow for you to do so in a really seamless way. And again, in a faster way as well too, because you're not spreading your attention so all over the place that you don't really know what to focus on. And so I think that it's really naive to go into business and not be focusing on those things. And once you do start focusing on them, again, you're going to have so much more knowledge and awareness of what's working, what's not working, so that you as the CEO can focus your time more effectively rather than just be doing busy work or things that you think are moving the needle that aren't actually creating any change in the business.
Right. We see a lot of times people come to us like that. They're just doing the busy work, thinking they're moving the needle, but in reality, they're not doing anything different. So I applaud you on that. I think that's one of the biggest things that I can see for you as well to hit like continued growth is just having those numbers dialed in as we talked about. Now, I am curious for you specifically, before you started working with us, what were you doing to get clients and what's changed since then? You mentioned more predictability, but what was that process like before when you were getting clients? Like how are you getting attention? How are you doing all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I literally would throw spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick and thought that I needed to engage in every single type of tactic. And so I would focus on podcasts. I would focus on collaborations. I remember I put together a bundle to increase exposure in different audiences, which took my team so much time and was the biggest headache ever. Organic content, email marketing, live launches, webinars, dabbled with paid ads, but was terrified of them because I wasn't tracking anything. And so it was so all over the place that, looking back now, I realized I never really gave my all to any of the things that I was doing because I was so scared to be hyper focused on one strategy. And in doing so, kind of got half-assed results from all of the strategies.
That's a good point. When you learned our strategy for ads, how simple would you say it is?
I mean, it definitely takes time to sit down and be disciplined in understanding who you're speaking to, your messaging, having the patience to go through the process of testing and understanding, what's working and what's not working. But the strategy is like literally the most simple 3-step process ultimately that you could incorporate into your business. And to me, I work in the wellness space, and so the nervous system is always something that's always top of mind. And to me, it was so regulating for my nervous system to know these are the main things that I need to focus on, and I can just simplify, as you always say, simple skills, complex fails. I can just simplify my approach to business. And so even though it definitely is something that requires discipline and takes time to fully understand and be able to master, and I feel like I'm still mastering it, as you know, you are as well, but it's 100% the most straightforward approach to growth that I have ever engaged in. And I've spent well over $200,000 in coaches and courses and masterminds. And so it's pretty mind-blowing what you guys are doing and how accessible it is for people who are wanting to scale their businesses quickly.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that because I see a lot of times we get people that come to us, they're like, well, I'm just going to watch a YouTube video on like how to learn how to run ads, and then I'm just going to magically scale to 100K a month. What are your thoughts for people that come and they're like, that would be their objection is like, hey, I just want to watch a YouTube video. I can do it myself. Are they missing anything? What advice would you give those people?
So I think the first thing is being inside of AIA and working with you and your team allows for them to have high touch support that a YouTube video will never be able to hold a flame to, because at the end of the day, a YouTube video is static. It might show you a process or a tutorial, but as you start implementing, you need that feedback. You need an expert really looking at what it is that you're doing and giving you that advice, because at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know, and you're not always able to see your own blind spots. And there's so many times that I've thought that I was doing it right on my own, and then we'll come into a coaching call and have your eyes on it or one of your team members' eyes on it and realize that even though I was following a video, I wasn't fully paying attention to all of the little granular details. And so I think that, yes, of course, you can go spend hours and hours and hours of time researching YouTube videos to try and find the right strategy that works for you. But at the end of the day, rich people buy time, poor people just buy things. And so I would much rather buy my time back by working with the best of the best in the industry than spending copious amounts of time trying to find the right YouTube video that may or may not work for my business model.
I think that's a really good way to look at it, because I always tell people, I think at the end of the day, time is the most valuable currency. And I think a lot of people have that mixed up backwards, where they think money is more important than time, or at least they don't actually understand it. And that's exactly why you're here right now. We're interviewing you, is because you're a component of that. You understand that at the end of the day, like, you use money as a tool. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that. But also kind of going with what you said is also like YouTube videos and things like that is like, everybody needs a very strategic approach. Like, what works in your business is different than my business and then someone else's business. So I think having whenever someone invests in a program or anything, that's why I'm a big believer in mentorship, is just like finding somebody that you can just bounce ideas off of, because if they've been there and done that, chances are they probably have an idea of how to get you that next level. So I love your answer for that. My last question for you, Ava, we've been working together for a little bit now. What would you say to somebody that is on the edge or considering about joining AIA or working with me or my team?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of already shared this, but I've had my business for 10 years. The first 3 years of my business were chaotic. The second 3 years of my business were, less chaotic. I mean, I was generating money, but it was very up and down. And for the first time in the 10 years of running my business, I feel so confident and sure in what I'm creating, where I'm going, what I'm focusing on. And it's truly because of the support you and your team have given me over the last year. I have never made an investment that has provided such a strong ROI beyond just the financial return, but like how I lead myself, how I look at my business, my organization, how I show up on a day-to-day basis, the standards that I set. it's so much deeper than just a ad strategy or a strategy to scale. And some of those things are the more soft, I would say, benefits and tangibles of joining AIA, but to me are worth $1 million. And so when I signed up a year ago, if I had known everything that would have transpired, I think that the 6 months leading up to us working together, my business had maybe generated 100K altogether. And within the 6 months that we worked together in 2024, my business generated almost $400,000. So almost 4 times the amount of money I made in the same amount of time. And so it's been a crazy, beautiful journey. And again, going back to that day, if I were to know what I know now, I would have paid quadruple the price that I actually invested in the program. And so to me, it's a no-brainer for people that are hungry, people that are motivated, people that have big dreams for themselves, don't want to play small, and want to surround themselves with other individuals that do have that vision of not just building like a fun side business, but like want to build a legacy behind their name and want to do so in a way that's predictable and can happen like very fast as well.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. Ava, for everyone that's watching this, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, my Instagram is at Ava Johanna. I'm definitely the most active there. I am also coming out with a book in a couple months called Your Vision Board Life. So that'll be available on Amazon, but it'll probably come out a little bit after this episode releases.
Well, we'll make sure to plug all the details down below. You guys go give Ava a follow. Ava, I appreciate your time on this call.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.